Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. Today we're making another project that we can sew to sell, but you can equally use it as a gift or just make it for yourself. Now, I'm not going to show you what it is today because it's been a really long time since we've done a mystery project. So I dare you not to fast forward and have a look and see what we're making. I promise you it's really simple and it's quick as well. And I think you might enjoy making this for your handmade business if you have one. So we're going to get started. It's one piece of fabric, a couple of bits of fabric for other things, which you will find out soon enough. And yeah, look, it really is a simple project. No zips, no buttons, no magnetic closures, nothing like that at all. Let's get straight to it. Be brave, don't fast forward. All right, are you ready for this surprise? What we have is one piece of fabric for the bag. So obviously we're making a bag and I have quite a large size of fabric here. So we just need the one. Then I have a narrow strip of fabric which I'm going to be using for a binding. We will need one piece for the binding. And then I have two pieces of fabric because we're going to make our handles today. That is all we need. So let's prepare the handles first. What we want to do, there's no stabilizers in this, no zips, no hardware of any kind. It's just a very, very simple bag that shouldn't take long to do, and you should be able to sell them quite well. At least I hope so. So we're going to fold this fabric for the handles in half. Then you'll fold the raw edge into the center and the other side as well. And you'll want to give this all a really good press. And once you've done that, you'll just fold that in half again. And you'll sew down both long edges. You don't need to do anything with the raw edges at the ends. So we will do that for both of our handle pieces of fabric. So far, there's no surprises there. So I will go and iron these and then we'll go over to the machine and sew them. Once you've ironed your handles, if you decide that you want this to be a little bit more rigid or have a little bit more stability to it, you can add a product called, I think it's called Whisper Weft, or it's a double-sided fusible hemming tape. There's nothing attached to it, it's just fusible and it will melt as soon as the heat touches it. It's very light and it will just give a tiny little bit of extra support or strength to your bag or your handles, and you can place that over one side of your handle fabric and you want to be careful not to let it weep out over the edge of your fabric either. It needs to sit to the inside because this will stick to your iron and it will stick to any surfaces that it comes in contact with that's hot. So you'll fold that fabric over and tuck that to the inside and give it another press. The heat will activate all the glue in there and it'll stick these layers together. You still want to sew them, but it just gives a little bit of extra strength. So this one I've done earlier, and you can see that that's glued together on the inside. We can go now and sew all the way down both long edges. And by having that fusible webbing on the inside, as you're sewing this, you're going to have less chance of it puckering because everything is nicely secured in those layers. And then we can come back down the other side. Okay, we have both our handles done. We can now position those into our fabric. So let's get the fabric. How many of you have fast forwarded already? And what we want to do is mark the position of our handles. So I've got this one piece of fabric and the bag's orientation is this way. So this is the height and this is the width. So I want my stripes, when the bag is finished, to go down like this. So we'll fold that fabric in half, and I'm going to leave an overhang at the back just for ease of measuring. Line up that edge on the right hand side, and from the outside edge here I'm going to measure 8 inches or 20 centimetres, and I'll make a mark on the front fabric and on the back. So this will be the centre position of one side of my bag. From there I want to measure out 3 inches on either side, which is about 7.5 centimetres. So I'll make a mark here and on the front piece, and I'll do the same on the other side. So this has just enabled me to mark both sides of the fabric at the same time. Now we can take one of our handles, and where this mark is, I'm going to place my handle to the outside of that mark, and I'll pop a clip in that, and keeping the handle nice and flat, I'll put this other side to the other side of that mark. So that's that handle in position. Now we can do this one. I'll place my handle to the back of the fabric and line it up next to that mark I've made, keeping it nice and flat as I go around. I'll line that up behind as well. So that one and this one should both line up now. Bring the edges of your fabric together and just double check that everything is going to line up. And if it doesn't, then you can just move one side over a little bit. That one looks good, and that one's good too. So I'm going to go quickly over to the machine and just secure these handle pieces in place. I'll be right back. Okay, I've sewn both handles in place, and I wanted to do that just so that nothing moves whilst we get on with the next step. So let's open this out, and what we're going to do next at this end and the top end is measure 2 inches or 5 centimetres. I find this tool really handy for measuring wider widths or marking wider sections rather than my smaller one. So I'll line that up at the 2-inch line or 5 centimetres, and I'm going to mark a line going all the way across. And we can turn this around and go to the other end and do the same. Now that we've marked both of those lines, we can grab our pressing mat again and the iron, and we're going to fold the raw edge up to the line that we've marked. So we're not folding at the line, we're folding the fabric to the line and pressing it in place. And once you've done that, we'll do it again. So now that we have the first fold, all we need to do is fold that over and press it again. And then what you can do is take this handle and fold it up. Press that in place. So what's happened here is that we've stitched our handle on to the edge of the fabric. Not much security there, but we've folded it over once and then folded it over again. So that handle is well hidden inside the seam, and by the time we come across and stitch it, it's going to be very securely stitched in place. I'll pop a clip just on either side to keep that nice and straight. And then we can do that on the other side. So once again, we're going to fold the raw edge up to that line we've marked. And then we'll take this and fold it over again. This is much quicker than having to measure 1 inch every single time and then go and press a little bit. So if you decide to make these to sell, you'll save loads of time. And we'll fold that handle back over again. And we'll clip those in place as well. All right, now we can go back over to the machine and we'll sew down this edge, and we'll do the same at the other end as well. So just double check that you've got it folded over twice, and we'll sew the bottom edge first. And we'll go back to the beginning and we'll sew the top edge. I'll triple stitch the top section of the handle. So that's the hem done on the top section of one side of your bag. Now we can go to the other end and repeat. Double check that you've got it folded over twice. And we'll do the bottom section first again. And back to the beginning again. Okay, so the top section on both sides is done. Have you worked out how this bag's going together yet? What we can do now is place the fabric with the wrong side faced down, and then we'll bring up the other side. So we want the wrong side faced up. We're putting the right sides together. Line up those handles. So this is where, if you have stitched everything down and you find it hasn't lined up perfectly, we can actually fudge it at this point. So I have probably 1/4 inch leftover fabric on one side. It's more important to have the handles lined up. So for now, I'm going to clip the fabric together just to keep this nice and even. And then what we're going to do with the rest of it nice and even as well, I might put a couple of clips up here as well, just to keep the layers together. Okay, we're going to bring this side edge over and line up the edges, line up the bottom, so you can see how our bag's coming together now. And I just want to mark the centre. Open that back out again, and here's my centre. Line up your fabric so that it's nice and straight, and we want to mark a straight line going down the centre there. And this is our next stitching line. So we'll go back to the machine, we're going to back stitch up here, and then we'll sew all the way down to the other end. Let's go do that. Okay, so I'm going to start at this mark that I've made and sew all the way to the end. Okay, we'll remove these clips. We're going to take this edge on the left and bring it back all the way over to the right and line up those raw edges again. And you want to line up the top section as well. It's more important to line that up than it is the bottom. So we want our top edge lined up, and we want our hems to line up as well. So I'm happy with that. And then we can line up the side edges. And we'll sew down this side here. All right, we'll start at the very top, and your seam allowance can be whatever you like here. I'm just going to use the edge of my foot as my guide. Okay, we're nearly finished. The last thing we need to do is attach our binding. So I'm going to take my binding and overhang it at the top and fold the edge over. So it doesn't matter how much of an overhang you have, as long as you've got enough of a tail at the other end. I'll clip that in place, and we'll go back over to the machine and we'll stitch all the way down there. Because I've got a wider binding here, I'm going to make my seam allowance just a tiny little wider than the initial sewing line. So we can back stitch again at the top and then sew all the way to the end. All right, we're up to the last step. So we have that little flap folded over at the top there. You'll pull that out and then bring the binding around. You can press it out if you like. Fold that over. We can trim off the excess binding, leaving a little bit for a fold over. At this end, we're going to fold this edge over, and you can finger press that, hold it in place, and we can finger press that edge as well. And then we're going to fold this raw edge up to the raw edges of our seam, so just halfway. Finger press that in place. If you find that you've got your seam a little wider than you like, you can make this fold a little narrower, and then that will give you a bigger overhang. Likewise, if you've got too much room, you can make your fold a little bit longer or wider, and it'll give you less overhang. So we'll fold that over one more time. Oops. And just clip it in place. And now we're ready to go back to the machine one final time and sew all the way down there, and then we're done. Okay, backstitch at the beginning and the end. And I'm just stitching down on this folded edge. And we're done. All right, let's see how this bag has come together. So what you have here is a tube that goes all the way through the bag. So obviously you don't want to turn it out where you still have a tube. Take this layer and just turn it out through that. Poke out the corners. And you want to poke out the corners on both sides just to make sure everything is sitting nicely. I'll go and give this a press. So I've ironed one side or both sides of the bag, but you want to turn this, if your handles are in the middle of the bag, you want to turn this one more time. So let's grab the center of the bag and we'll poke those corners out one more time and double check that those handles are on the outside and give it a final press. All right, there we go. It's completely finished. So I've put my label on the front, just on the top band on one side. And if you have a look inside the bag, with that great big piece of fabric folded in half both ways, we now have an opening or storage space on this side. We have storage space in the center, and we also have storage space on the other side. No raw edges whatsoever, and loads of space to put all of your goodies inside that bag. Now I'm not going to put any snaps or Velcro or anything like that on this bag, but you may like to do that, so you might want to put a strip of Velcro on this side and then possibly a strip of Velcro on this side as well, or just some plastic snaps. Completely up to you. But I'm going to leave this exactly as is and hope you guys didn't fast forward. Okay, be honest. How many of you fast forwarded because you couldn't resist the temptation? I would have done it myself. So there you go, a very simple shopping tote with loads of storage space out of one big piece of fabric. I think it's turned out great. What do you guys reckon? So I'm thinking that this would actually be a really good project to make for the shop out of the larger pieces of fabric that I have that are, you know, not very inspiring. I have some really ugly florals. I have some ugly prints. And I think this is a great way to get rid of the fabric, make something really quickly, and yeah, get a good functional bag out of it as well. In the shop, I would probably sell this for about $15 to $20. And the time, I think I could get this down to about 10 minutes each bag. Once you cut up all of your fabric, you don't have to do any measurements because I would just use one of the fabric pieces as my template and make my markings, cut up all my, what are these, handles. Actually, I probably wouldn't do the handles. I would use my webbing or something even lighter for the webbing, so that would save a lot of time. But folding the edges over, really simple to do when you don't have to measure every single fold. You just draw a line, mark, fold your hem over to the line, and away you go. So there are a couple of time-saving techniques for sewing to sell or sewing for your markets. Yeah, turned out all right. We have a Facebook group called Christine's Home Affairs, and quite often when I've done mystery projects, the next morning when I wake up, I see these, or whatever it was that we did for the video, see that next morning when I wake up. So I am really looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with this bag when I get up in the morning. So if you haven't already joined the Facebook group, it's a really good friendly group. do that. It's called Christine's Home Affairs. Everything's called Christine's Home Affairs. And if you haven't subscribed yet, perhaps you might want to click subscribe and hit that bell button too. It helps me out. So, very simple project. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I shall catch you next time. Bye for now.